Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 25 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. I'm joined by my guys, Tyler Adelle and Nick Partain. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We welcome you to another fantastic episode of all-around sports talk here during this pandemic. It is 6:01 Eastern time on this Friday evening. Not a sunny day, but it's a little gloomy. So for those that are inside watching us, we cannot thank you enough for tuning in to Eastern Observer and YouTube Live. For those that want to ask us questions, please put that into the live chat to the right of your screen. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. We have three special guests. We have Rob. Let's figure out the last name one more time.
No, go ahead.
Rob Longiaru.
Can this just be the rest of the show?
All right, yeah. All right. So we have Rob Longiaru from Golden Stick Wiffle of New York. He'll be on starting at 7 p.m. And then at 7:30, we have Jaden Daly of Daily Dose of Hoops. And then also NCAA Hoops Digest's Jake Zimmer will be joining us here for some Seton Hall, UConn, and Iona sports talk, and also a surprise out of Queens and St. John's tonight. So we have a lot of things to discuss here. But first, we're going to start off with something that has happened this past week. And we were speaking about last week, actually. We were speaking about off camera earlier about some extracurricular programming, if you will, by ESPN. And it actually all ties back in from last week to now because they had some cancellations of certain sports, and now they actually just brought in a sport such as baseball, but in the KBO, the South Korean Baseball League. Now, that started airing on Tuesday morning of this past Tuesday at 1 a.m. live on ESPN. Fellas, I'm going to ask you this bluntly. Does any of us care about it?
I do.
All right. Let's hear it.
So I actually, as soon as I'm done writing, I'll answer your question, Q-Tip, Joey. So I actually stayed up. I caught the opening night game with the Samsung Lions and DC Dinos or FC Dinos, whatever they're calling themselves. They sound way too much like soccer names. It gets very confusing.
Well, when you said dinos, I was thinking like the dino nuggets, like the ones that you get at the freezer aisle. Right, those are good. Those are pretty good, Nick.
No, I was okay. So long story short, me and my friends are up playing PlayStation. In my room, I have two TVs so I can play and watch. And I'm scrolling through the channels. I hit ESPN and I see Korean baseball. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I didn't know this was a thing. So yeah. I did like probably 30 seconds worth of research. I check it out and they're like, oh yeah, ESPN got a contract to show the Korean baseball till MLB starts. And I'm like, all right, this is sick. I'm going to watch this. And I'm not going to lie, it was actually pretty interesting. I was reading some things that they were going to have like robot fans in the stands. I was kind of disappointed because I didn't see any. But it was also in the middle of a rain delay. So, I mean, the last thing you want is for a robot to get wet and then, they start a revolution.
I was literally going to say, and then they take over the world. I was hoping he was going to be serious about it.
And then it would be like the Terminator movie, in real life.
Yeah, we've all seen.
Mike Trout's going to come back in the future and take them all out.
Yeah, we've seen iRobot. It doesn't end well, but yeah, it was like, it wasn't like you would think you're watching. You were like, all right, I'm going to watch some low quality baseball for a few hours. It was actually like pretty. I think the final score was only like 4-0, which I mean by baseball standards nowadays isn't technically a blowout. So it was actually really intense to watch. I mean, I don't know. Did you guys catch the games or?
Well, I can say this. No, I was in about my second dream by the time that the game started, which it looks like, Tyler, it's about like 1-2 a.m., right? That's usually the time that you're up and you're moving by that time.
First pitch was even later because the game was supposed to start at 1. They hit the rain delay. I don't think first pitch was until almost 2:30.
Woof.
Well, all the start times for the game on ESPN are like 1:10 or like 5:25. I'm not staying up for the 5 o'clock games, but it was if I'm up, I might as well have it on in the background.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know what? And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I have not, and I think I've said this in previous episodes too, is that ever since March 12th and sports was canceled, because I work in sports, it's almost like you need like a breather. And I've said this to Nick personally and both on camera too. It's almost like you need a breather, and you just need to escape from it sometimes, And I have not turned on ESPN in almost a month. So no, you know what? I actually have to go to sleep listening to that. And I want to hear what Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez, how they broadcast it. And for those that don't know, they broadcast it from their homes via internet. That's pretty cool. And, they have these, just by looking at some of the teams, the Kia Tigers, the Samsung Lions, the Doosan Bears, SK Wyverns, the Hyundai Unicorns, which are no longer, the LG Twins, the Lot Giants, the Hanwha Eagles, the Kiwoom Heroes, and the aforementioned NC Dinos. Not bad. And some of the attendance,
the presentation was great.
Yeah. And the attendance, Tyler, too, is not that bad either, just by looking at it. And their baseball capacity, it's not the worst.
Well, I can tell you that Monday night the attendance was a grand total of 0. But yeah,
well, let me the capacity, the stadium capacity.
No, the field itself was gorgeous. The stadium was beautiful. The field was, I couldn't believe how good it looked. And like I said, the presentation of the entire game was amazing. They had Eric Thames on doing half the game.
That's great. And if I'm not mistaken, he was also a part of South Korean baseball at one point.
Yeah, he was. I'm pretty sure, if I'm correct, he stepped away from the league for about a year or two and played with the Dinos, and then he just got picked up by Washington.
Yeah, that's really, really, really cool. So yeah, no, and it says that the KBO league is the most popular sports league in South Korea. I mean, how many other sports leagues really are there? But then also, we've seen that some of these guys in the dugouts are wearing masks and everything like that. We know, I think all of our viewers know the how we feel, all three of us, how we feel about whatever it is. So we won't go into that, but I think to see it at 1:00 in the morning when we all have jobs, when, Nick is a full-time accountant, I still work from home with sports. It's very difficult when you have to clock in at a certain time and you have to be up at a certain time, or simply it's just, you don't want to watch it. To me, I think that there would be maybe one time I'd watch it just to see it. It doesn't really interest me. I don't know, but and this is something that we've said in our early shows when soccer was still going on and Nick was talking about soccer, where soccer is growing, baseball is dying in this country. It is. So and with the lack of live programming, ESPN and Mickey Mouse and Disney had to hop on it, and they hopped onto something. Hopefully, it'll work out for ESPN and the Walt Disney companies, but who knows? There's a lot of if, ands, or buts, because if one person gets sick on there, then everything quits.
The difference is there's no new cases in South Korea anymore. They've eradicated this. They shut down way quicker than we did. They figured it out. They quarantined the heck out of it. They did a wonderful job of smothering this thing before it got as bad as it got here. So they're basically almost done with basically being able to say this isn't here anymore. Everyone who's had it has lost it. They don't have any more people getting it. It's an incredible job of them by being as safe as humanly possible. Now they're just waiting to things to go back to normal when they get a vaccine or some kind of antibody that everybody can have. And that's basically all they have to do now. For me, it doesn't interest me. They could put it on at prime time, play replays. It's just not going to interest me. My general rule of thumb is that if it's not the best league in the world, it usually doesn't interest me. The only real exception to that is Major League Soccer because it's domestic. I don't watch as much of the European soccer games. They're on at the crack of dawn, and it's harder for me to access. I'll watch a little bit of it here and there if they have a slightly later game that starts like late morning, but every other sport, just like even college sports, barely interest me because I just can't stand watching the players that aren't the best. It just doesn't appeal to me.
The personality of a lily pad.
What?
You have the personality of a lily pad. You don't like anything.
I like professional sports. I don't know what to tell you. That's my interest. I can't get excited for college basketball where they make 1 out of 50 shots and the shot clock lasts 10 minutes. It's not fun to me.
So they're only pro sports.
For the most part, yes. My only exception is soccer because American soccer is not the top one. Wrestling just doesn't interest me in general. There's nothing against it. It's just, I don't know. It didn't really appeal to me.
I can sway your mind on Tuesdays at 6:00 on the Essential Wrestling Podcast.
I've watched wrestling before. My brother used to be really into it. I watched some of it with him when he was really into it. It was all right. The storyline is what you watch it for more than the actual wrestling. At least that's what I got out of it. I got more enjoyment of seeing the guys yelling at each other and following that kind of thing, the rivalries and the who's teamed up and whatnot, than it really was the wrestling. But I don't fault people for enjoying it. It's fun. It just doesn't interest me as much. I think it's the predetermined outcome just stuck in the back of my head, knowing that I'm just trying to read what the writers are saying, not really who's the better wrestler. But
okay, I respect your opinion because you said predetermined and not fake.
Like fake. They're actually wrestling out there. Those guys get hurt. They're taking a beating. Fake is a generalization that people use, but yeah, it's predetermined is what kind of irks me. I wish they would at least let them determine who the better wrestler is and have the person win based on that. Not necessarily that they're really fighting each other, but determine in advance who they think is better and have that person win. I feel like too often it's all right, who are we throwing on top this week? Who should be the guy who wins? And I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me as much.
So just to go off of that point of wrestling or whatever, I love the fact whenever they throw chairs at each other. That's fantastic.
Well, yeah, we need more of that.
And you're 5 years too late.
Oh, whoops. All right.
Well, I like to play the old WWE games where you get a sledgehammer out there whacking guys. I want that completely uncensored violence of these guys beating each other with whatever you could find under the ring.
All I could think of is in the movie Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire and Bonesaw is ready. No. No. All right. Well, I tried. Another defunct club, actually, or a dissolved club. This is a fantastic name. Sasang Bang Wool Raiders. And it sounds exactly the way you hear it. Sang Bang Wool Raiders. And there's nothing dirty about it. It's just Sang Bang Wool Raiders.
Oh, yeah. What I said last week was really bad, but that's not pushing the issue. Do we really have to make that connection on the air?
No, seriously.
Somebody signed a contract to legally make that the team name.
I know, but you don't have to say that it's a reference to something else. Just we know that that's what that is.
Well, that's all right. No.
Yeah, we don't have to bleep that.
Well, no, we don't have to. And not only that, also was that it didn't. Don't worry.
What?
Now,
just messing with you, for crying out loud. What's next?
Moving forward with baseball and with Major League Baseball, there's a lot of rumble. There's a lot of rumblings out there. And Joe Girardi was one that heard this as well and reported this on MLB Network that July 1st we could see an opening day. We could see an opening day. Trevor Plouffe was the one to former Minnesota Twins player. Trevor Plouffe was the one to spill the beans on that one, if you will. But then also just a couple of weeks ago, this is a little bit older, but this is good to tie in here. Buck Showalter has said, and we could thank Tyler for this one. Buck Showalter, fanless games, quote, fanless games would be a mistake. So I can't fault Buck. And the reason why is because he he managed a game in Baltimore that was actually with no fans. It was under a different circumstance. But if you ask anybody, right, literally anybody, how is it going to be in a ballpark with no fans? I think you can ask Buck because he was there. He can give his opinion. He may have other political opinions or whatever the case may be. But in terms of just asking the question of how does it feel with no fans? Well, he knows it because he was there. Fellas, do we see a July 1st start? And where? I mean, I don't see it possible. And I think, and I just want to tie this in. When I spoke with Chicago Cubs head coach Anthony Iapoce on the Zoom interview series, it didn't really, I didn't get a direct answer, but I got the insinuation that he was on the same side as Nick. Yeah, that's basically all I'm going to say. And I think that's really all I have to say.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's hard to say right now. It's hard to say anything but no, because all these people are coming out with they're going to play July 1st. Players are going to report June whenever for a repeat of spring training, whatever you want to call it. But that's all we're hearing. Like, you haven't heard anything past stadiums, past the realignment. I know some people that have floated around that teams would be allowed to play in their home ballparks with no fans. I heard, going back to the neutral sites, but past neutral sites, as far as like a verified source being ESPN or CBS Sports, you haven't heard anything past a neutral site location. These other outlets haven't even entertained the idea of playing in their home stadiums. So it's hard to say yes when you're now less than a month away from when these teams are supposed to report for abbreviated spring trainings. And where they're not going to go to the Sandlot. I mean, they got to have somewhere to go.
They can play games in cornfields. Why can't they play in a Sandlot?
Because they can play in the cornfield and make a boatload of cash out of it. And it's you guys both know where I stand on the whole thing. Like, I want to see them come back as soon as they can, as long as they can do it safely. But there's so little information about the stadiums, let alone everything else, that I have to say no right now, that I don't see it.
Yeah, Tyler hit that part on the nail. There's so much of this that would have had to have been worked out behind the scenes for this actually to work. What a manager like Buck Showalter, he might be old enough that he's a high-risk candidate for the virus. Is he really going to risk getting on the bench? We've heard this about NBA coaches. Like, that's a major thing that has to get worked out. Are they going to have him in a booth with a headset? Major League managers have never had that. And going back, Trevor Plouffe kind of angered every Major League Baseball reporter. It was really funny when that came out, because he came out and said, oh, this is a done deal. They have this plan. We just have to see if they execute it. And everyone yelled at him going, no, the plan isn't ready. It's a proposed plan, just like everything else. You're wrong. It was really funny to see him create like a major storm by thinking he was breaking something, but instead being wrong about it and pushing it too far. And realistically, I think that's all it is. It's another plan that they've drawn up. They've talked about. They're trying to figure it out. But I think you guys are both right. There's just way too many things that would have to be figured out to the nitty-gritty that I just can't imagine Rob Manfred has been on top of. Like, knowing Rob Manfred, he has no clue what's going on. He threw that date out there and told people try and get this to happen, and it's probably not going to happen. I'm going to
piggyback off that for a second, going back to the whole Buck Showalter thing. You have a lot of managers. Forget managers. You have scouts, base coaches, owners and GMs that are all in that age range of like, this virus can do a lot of damage. Like, Buck Showalter is an example.
Joe Madden,
who Dusty Baker was just picked up by the Astros, and he's got enough problems to worry about this year as is. He's got to worry about his players being thrown at all season and all the drama that's coming at him, and now he's got to worry about the stupid virus.
And he has to also make sure
all the umpires standing right there next to the catcher and batter. They're not usually young guys.
Yeah, and it's like you figure at first base, second base, third base, you're an umpire, you got a reasonable amount of distance from the players. At the plate alone, you have three people all within 1.5 feet of each other.
Yep.
So if one of those guys has it, it's almost a guarantee that in some form or another, the other two are most likely going to get it. And when you're going through the entire lineup, you could have half your team out by the end of the night.
Right. And
they got to just be very, you could throw masks on the umpires. It's not like they're running around in circles. I know it's not practical. I'm just spitballing ideas.
Right.
You could throw masks on the umpires. I don't see players wearing masks. It's going to be impossible to breathe in 100-degree weather trying to run out an extra base hit, or even run up the first baseline to run out a ground ball.
Right. Well, the only way to avoid all this is if they have mass testing, where every single player, umpire, and coach and base coach can be tested right before the game, play the game, go right back to an isolated apartment or something and then come back the next day and get tested before the next game. It would just have to be a daily thing. If they can get that kind of thing settled, then that's a way to do it. But it's a lot to deal with when tests are still needed in other places. To have this many used on baseball players, it better be in really mass quantity available everywhere. To use such a mass amount on something that's not essential.
And the biggest thing coming out of the test would probably be, who's going to fund it? Is it up to the team to fund it? Is it up to the league to fund it? Are they going to fund the straight coronavirus test? Are they going to be funding the antibody test? Like, it is so many things that still haven't. I would hate to sit here and try and tell you that they haven't been spoken about, because I'm sure it's been brought up, but it's the fact of they're not, and I don't blame them for not pumping out information that might not be accurate, but it's like, you can't have people, regardless of who it is, start throwing out all these dates and then not give any more information to it.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. That's how rumors begin. That's how rumors spread. And especially now, and I think we've spoken about this before, is that, we've been, in agreement to disagree with certain aspects of this. And, we look at some people who need sports back in their life, like literally need it back. Otherwise they could do harm to themselves. It's a very rough line to talk about, or tough topic to talk about. I personally, and I'm going to end it here, fellas, with this, just because it's this could be a whole 2-hour conversation on the same old thing, and then it gets into politics, and then it's not positive. To me, I don't see it happening, and that's really all I got. I don't see it happening. And you have guys like, again, Joe Madden, Buck Showalter, who's obviously not in the league, but Joe Madden is. But then you also have guys that are in their upper 50s that are getting close to that age, I guess, threshold where they are risks. That's all I'm going to say about this. Moving forward with Major League Baseball, Yadier Molina, catcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, he says, according to Tyler a few weeks ago, and credit to Tyler for this because I did not catch this, he's willing to enter free agency if the Cardinals do not extend his contract. And he hasn't been the healthiest guy of all in recent years. How much money do you think he'd get if he actually hit the open market?
Not a ton.
I don't know. I think more than people think, just for his brain. Imagine having Yadier Molina as your backup catcher. Imagine having Yadier Molina working with your pitchers and a young catcher on your team. Like a really high market team with a really good chance of winning the title with a catcher who might not be great defensively. Think about the Yankees. Wouldn't he be an excellent candidate to tutor Gary Sanchez as his backup? If I'm the Yankees, I'm jumping on that opportunity to have him be there. You don't need him to be your starter if you're a team like that. I don't think anybody will pay him to be the starting catcher. And honestly, at this point in his career, he may not look for that. He may look for a team where he can win a title as a backup, play a decent amount of games, tutor a younger guy, and make his living that way. But I don't see it being a no-interest scenario because backup catcher is an important position on every major league team. Someone will want Yadier Molina, and I think there'll end up being a couple of good teams bidding for him. He's a player that brings value even if he's not playing.
So it's one of those things where everything taken into account, going into the last year of his deal, he's making $20 million at 37 years old. He's not coming anywhere near that unless he goes to a team like the Yankees, who will famously overpay for him to be there, which I hope
but
they
that's
don't.
Insane.
This is a Yankee regime. They don't do that.
No, I don't think he's going to get anywhere near the 20, but I could see the Yankees showing a team like the Yankees shelling him out a 1-year, $12 million deal because they're that desperate.
I think 12 million. I think 12 million for his brain is definitely because you know what? Exactly what Nick said is that who knows if you're going to be 100% paying for the bat, you're going to be paying for the defense, but you're going to be paying to tutor these guys. That's the whole thing. And for instance, for a young team, you know who I honestly can see, which may not be, and I think this is a bold statement, an up and coming team, if they do it right, the San Diego Padres.
Well, them I could see overpaying. That's more of their MO.
Yes,
Oh, we
them
don't have
I
a
could
pitcher.
them I
young pitchers. Let's go out and overpay for Yadier. That I could see them giving him a deal.
Right. I could see them giving the deal, but the way that I could see it is because their pitchers they have not had good pitching. The last time
they got
had
young
good,
guys coming up, they got some names that are about to hit the show. They could be very much helped by a Yadier Molina.
That's what I'm saying. And to to continue with my point is that they have not had good pitching or even in the pipeline since I don't even know when. They had James Shields. They had James Shields when they traded for him. Remember that?
I remember that. Did you see the replay of the Bartolo home run 100 times yesterday? Right. It was crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have a terrible pipeline for pitchers, and now you have in the Padres system, and AJ Preller has done a fantastic job rebuilding what they sold years ago. When, if we remember correctly, now they had Matt Kemp, they had Justin Upton, they had Will Myers, B.J. Upton, Melvin Upton Jr. They had they brought back Chase Headley at the time. So now exactly. I know. Laugh. I know. But that's just facts. But now they're finally being able to do something. Yeah, my gosh, they overpaid for Eric Hosmer. So why wouldn't they overpay for someone like a Yadier Molina who can be a humongous help to a pipeline of pitchers, as you said, Nick, that are ready to hit the show? That's just my 2 cents. Anything else on that, fellas?
I mean, there could be some teams that desperately need him. I do see the Padres as a team that needs him, or a team that could definitely make a very good utility out of him. I don't think overpaying for a brain is worth it to have a guy who's only going to catch maybe twice a week, maybe once a week as a backup. And you also got to think 38 years old, 38 years old, the catcher. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, usually this is the part of the year where it's like, oh, they kind of go to first base.
All right. That's where I had one other thing I wanted to mention. I don't know if he would even want to go to the Padres. They may make him the biggest offer, but this stage of his career, you're right, Tyler. He might just want to be on a good team and play as a backup and accept.
I think at this point,
pushed somewhere, even though he's making more money to play more, he might just be like, you know what, Padres are offering me more money, but I'd rather take half of that on a 1-year deal to play for a Yankees or a Dodgers, a team that has a good young up and coming catcher, and be a tutor instead, and put less stress on a 38-year-old body and not have to be pushed to play that much.
Well, that's the thing. At this point in his career, how do you not, after how many years has he been in the league? Over 12. How do you not look for a
12? I think it's over 15. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you not look for a championship at this point?
Well, because he's won some already. That's the only argument there. He's
right.
won a couple of titles, so it might not be as important.
No, I know, but it's like, how do you
payday?
Yeah. No, I know, but it's like, you see how many people always want to go out on top and retire as retire a champion. It's like, do you blame him if he doesn't? I mean, do you blame him if he does that? I personally don't, but
yeah, it's gonna come down to personal preference.
The only thing that I could think of, if Tyler, if that is, to piggyback off of what Tyler said, if he wants, or what Nick said as well, if he wants to go to a contender, the only team that I see that would be feasible, if he wanted to go to the National League, let's say, I haven't even gotten to the American League yet, would be the Phillies. Put him behind JT Realmuto. It's tough, but their pitchers, they're not the greatest in the pipeline. But I think that he could still bring some, like, a good culture to that locker room, which really, when you have Bryce Harper in the locker room, it's all about me. Okay, well, we'll see. But Joe Girardi and Didi Gregorius might pump into there. Who knows? We don't know. There's like I said, there's plenty of teams that are out there that will be vying for his services, plural. If St. Louis does not want to re-sign him, which in my opinion, I think would be a complete mistake, even at a small offer. Moving forward with baseball, this is just in local news for those that are listening. Similar to the Cape Cod Baseball League, for those that do not know, that is the Summer Collegiate Baseball League down here on Long Island. The Hamptons Collegiate Baseball League, which is like the equivalent of the Cape Cod League, was just canceled this past week. So now I'm almost positive there are no summer baseball leagues being played. I think that the Hamptons Baseball League was the last one to officially announce that they were finished for the year. So that's definitely some sad stuff. Both Tyler and I know about that very well. We're going to be working with the league, doing some stuff with it. The three of us were going to be doing some stuff with that, but unfortunately, that it will have to wait until 2021 would be, I think, a lot safer and healthier for all of us. But moving forward, football time. It is 6:31 though here on the East Coast, and it has been a long time, fellas, since we have done a sports update. It's been a while. Well, let's see. Oh, there are no sports updates. Okay, great. So now that we've gotten that complete, let's.
Wait a minute, I got it. Hang on, I have something. Hold on. I got an update.
Okay, let's hear it.
The 2020 MLB draft is going to have 5 rounds only. That's the number that they settled on. That had been talked about for a while now, how many they were going to go. GMs didn't want it to go that long. GMs wanted to get it pushed back. Apparently, the league is intent on still having it in June, and 5 rounds is the number that they've settled on. So
good. It should be less than 40.
What, you mean you don't want to see your favorite team draft Russell Wilson again?
Say it again. You got cut off there.
You don't want to see your favorite team draft Russell Wilson?
No.
Or some other guy who has no chance of ever playing?
I'm good. No, in round 39? No, thanks. I'm good.
Yeah.
So now the NFL, ladies and gentlemen. So that was your 631 update presented to you by Ed Randall's Fans for the Cure. Log on Ed Randall's Fans for number 4 thecure.com. Brought to you by Nick Partain. Thank you, Nick, for that little nugget there. Ladies and gentlemen, just last week after we were done here, after episode number 24, I believe it was the day after, Andy Dalton signs a deal with the Dallas Cowboys, 1 year, $7 million. $3 million of that is guaranteed money. I mean, hey, listen, I think, and I was actually on another show, on the Blackjack Media Networks. And someone had asked me and they said, is the pressure on Dak? Who has more pressure in the NFC East, Dak or Carson Wentz? And I had to say Dak, and that's not biased. That's just because, and I think Nick said this too, if you're not paying, or if you're paying $40 million for a QB that is subpar, and you have all of these guys around him that can do the job, why can't you have Andy Dalton, who can do it? We've seen him do it. Why can't he be the one to lead you with a whole ton of weapons and a better head coach? No, nothing against Marvin Lewis, but it's all on writing. He could not get past the wild card round. Mike McCarthy has won a Super Bowl. There is no commitment to Dak Prescott after this year. Neither is Andy Dalton, though, but you never know. He could be called on to Jerry Jones's yacht and say, here, sign another another contract or something like that for maybe a little bit more money if he can get it done. Let's hear your thoughts, fellas. Andy Dalton to the Cowboys. What do we got?
Well, I think based on the hypothetical you brought up, I think you're wrong. I think there's more pressure on Carson Wentz. His team won a Super Bowl without him. His team just drafted a quarterback in the second round. There's a lot more heat on Wentz all of a sudden, where he was kind of being handed everything and everything was okay. And Nick Foles is gone. For a minute, he was off in the clear. Everything was his. And now they've all of a sudden drafted a guy. I know he has that big contract, but we just saw Nick Foles' contract got traded. This kind of thing happens. He should be very afraid for his job. And you mentioned about Andy Dalton. It's a 1-year deal. Dak is still the franchise guy. I can't imagine a situation where Dak is pulled for Dalton this year. It's just not going to happen. Dak would have to get hurt. Is the only way he'd lose that job, and Dalton would have to play phenomenally after that. But that doesn't put pressure on Dak, because Dak's not going to lose his job, I don't think, for performance. I really can't imagine it. Dallas just took a chance that not a lot of teams get to get a very cheap backup because he wanted to go home, who's also starting caliber. Like, he's now the league's best quarterback.
Yeah.
So you don't turn that down.
Well, the reason why I did say Dak is because he hasn't gotten the $40 million that he's wanted. Carson Wentz has gotten all the money in the world. Yes, right now he wants to lead his team to the promised land, but he already has all the guarantees. Dak Prescott does not have a single guarantee following this upcoming year. So if he wants his $40 million, he has to prove it. And that's what I'm saying. Right now, he's playing for that number. And if he does not live up to the hype or potentially even get past the divisional round, the second round of the NFL playoffs next year, if there is one, why would any team want to pay you $40 million if you can't get past that round? And let's say, for instance, he does, as you did say, if he were to get hurt, yeah, that would stink. And he would have to go, and he would probably, play on a 1-year prove-it deal for sure. I'm assuming Jerry Jones would give that. If he was not stubborn and would take that, but we don't know. Obviously, we're just saying random stuff now and hypotheticals. But if that is the case, God forbid, he could lose out forever and he might not be able to get back to that level, what it could take mentally, physically. That's the thing that I'm saying, because Carson already has his money. Yeah, it stinks and he wants to get it to the promised land, but that money, he's already got that guaranteed. And you brought up Nick Foles, Nick Foles. Okay. You brought him up. He's got guarantees as well. So he's getting paid. He's getting paid to just sit back and get hurt on his collarbone or to potentially take Mitch Trubisky's job. Tyler, your thoughts on this?
So I'm going to do my best here to actually play devil's advocate for both of you.
Let's hear it.
Because, well, I hate the Eagles, but I'll give them their credit where it's due.
And I hate you. Go ahead. What?
But I hate the Eagles. I'll give them their credit where it's due, but that day is not going to be today.
He didn't hear me, but go ahead.
So, no, I heard you. I just blew it off. So here's the thing. I see where this puts I see where this puts Dak Prescott in a hard spot. Because the Cowboys go out, they sign this very low risk, moderately high reward player. They only guarantee the guy $3 million. There'll be incentives for him. He's probably got incentives in case this guy gets hurt and he's got to jump in and play. No question about it. So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, if you want $40 million, great. Here's a football. Here's a loaded receiving core.
Right.
Here's a top 5 running back in the league, arguably top 3 some weeks. Go do stuff. Go bring me a title. But if you can't and you fall short or you get hurt, there's a guy right behind you who's played in the league for quite a while who knows what he's doing. I have no problem putting him in if you bleep the bed. It's so I see where this definitely puts Prescott in a situation where he's got to take extra care of himself. He's definitely got to work he's got to work harder than he has been to make sure he's maintaining his starting job. Because the first time the Cowboys hit a losing record, with the exception of the first couple of weeks, 0-1, I don't think they're going to pull him out immediately. You see them going 1-2, 1-3, 0-3. You might see them mix something up. But I kind of see where this puts a little bit of pressure on Carson Wentz. The thing with him is that you got this guy who signed a contract that was extremely backloaded. I'm talking about the first year of this deal, he didn't even crack 7 figures. He barely breaks 7 figures the second year, which is this year. He's going to be getting that 1.38 base salary. Next year is when he really starts getting paid. He's getting that 15, 22, 20, 21 million. Remember, he does have the option to opt out after the 21-22 season. Looking at Carson Wentz's injury history, how much he's played, and the money he's getting, if the Eagles don't release him already, he would be a fool to opt out of this contract. No question about it. It's definitely one of those things where it's like, it's definitely harder to put any pressure on Carson Wentz, but at the same time, it's like, look, you can't stay healthy. If teams are willing to pull out their guy, we can pull out our guy too. So, right. Yeah. It's the same. Hey, it was the same deal with Eli Manning last year to a capacity where, hey, he couldn't. Hey, look, if you can't play and you're not going to perform, we're going to give the new kid a shot. And ultimately, Daniel Jones got a 12-week shot. And don't get me wrong, he played pretty well. And I for me, it's with my own team, I'm very biased to start calling for heads after the first season, especially when he jumps in week 3, and his last game is week 15. They let Eli Manning finish the season. So it's I get it.
No. They had Eli week 15, I believe it was, in Philadelphia, and then then Daniel Jones came back to finish the year. But yeah, no, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
But still, like I said, it still proves my point about Eli Manning, 2 Super Bowls,
Right.
2 Super Bowl MVPs, had like the 4th longest active starting streak or the longest.
Yeah, the Iron Man streak. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I understand that the Giants front office is, for lack of better terms, shaky. But it's still like, hey, if you're not going to produce, we're going to put the kid in. And it's the same thing with Carson Wentz. You get hurt, you're not producing, you fall short of the expectations, the kid's going in. So I see where the pressure is on Dak Prescott to be like, you want all this money, produce, or Andy Dalton is going in. And if he does well, he's staying in. So I see both sides of the fence here.
Yeah, it's just to me, the way I see it is that we are getting quarterbacks left and right that can still do the job who are unemployed right now. And when I say Cam Newton will most likely have a job, if you tell me that he will not have a job come August, you'd be crazy to not hire Cam Newton, even for just a backup role. I understand that Cam Newton wants money. He does. But let's be real. You're not going to get that starter money. And most likely you're not going to get top tier backup money because Andy Dalton just set the market for that. And that was pretty low. That was $7 million with $3 million in guarantees. Unless we see an injury in preseason, again, if there is a preseason, then Cam Newton might be sitting on the couch, which really, let's be honest, folks, this year's quarterback class in the 2020 NFL draft was extremely unbelievable, where you have guys like Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow. Guys are going to be coming into the fold, and they're going to be most likely starting. There's no room for him to start right now or potentially ever again. We may have seen the last of Cam unless we have an injury. But that's the way I look at it. And I say to myself, well, you have guys. It is so competitive. And it's in any business, any sport, whatever the case may be. And the same thing goes with Dak. You want that money? Go out and get me a Lombardi trophy. Go out and get me to the Super Bowl. Go out and do whatever. You don't pay these guys. And you know what? And I look at it like this. We spoke about the Rams last week. Or I think we did. If not, then I'm a little off. I do apologize. My days are all together. The Rams, they went out and they went to go pay everybody before getting a Super Bowl. Because they basically bought their way. They basically bought an NFC championship. Well, now look where they are.
They didn't buy the championship. Those guys were signed for after that. They already had them under contract for that year. They were all extensions.
Well, right, but
it wasn't like they were a bunch of one-year deals. They were guys there with some tenure.
But you also had, and for instance, we've brought this up before with Brandon Cooks. When you have a man like Brandon Cooks, who unfortunately has not proved a single thing, and I know we spoke about this last week with him being wanted, right? Yeah, he's wanted. But for those that have not proved themselves or gotten some sort of hardware or done whatever and had one good year, why are you getting signed to this top tier money? Yes, Nick, we brought this up last week because, yeah, he is good. Is he worth the money when he's healthy? Yes, he is. But again, why am I going to go out and go sign Dak Prescott to $40 million or whatever he wants when he has done nothing? When he's brought them to an NFC champion, was it an NFC championship or an NFC division? No, it was the divisional. That was year number 1 against Green Bay. And it was a good game, mind you. It was a fantastic game. I remember I was watching in Los Angeles. Fantastic game. But he didn't get them over the hump. So that was his freshman year. Okay, his sophomore year wasn't that great. And now we're 4 years in. Time to prove it. And he hasn't done that yet. So this year, in my opinion, if you don't prove it or if you don't get what you need to get done, why am I going to pay you $40 million when I could go out and go pay Cam Newton, I don't know, $15 million and go get some reinforcements on defense or reinforcements on the offensive line? When you also just had I think Travis Frederick, I think his name was, the offensive lineman.
Yeah, he's out.
You're right. Exactly. He retired all of a sudden. And that was like a Luke Kuechly type thing where he just retired off the cuff. Well, now that takes a massive hit to your offensive line. So now you have to recoup some funds. And he was big. And thankfully in the NFL, it's not like in the NHL where it's a recapture penalty or anything along those lines where, you get docked the cap hit or dead money for a retirement. It's not like that at all. So that's the one positive. But again, you still have to recoup and get some money and get some reinforcements in there.
So what did Carson Wentz won when he got paid?
Well, see, that's the whole thing. I never agreed with that contract. I'm going to tell you this. No, you're right. Dang. 0. I never agreed with that contract. I didn't. So,
but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Dak doesn't have to win a playoff game this year to get paid.
You're right. It doesn't happen.
Great game. Their offense is great, and he's still a good quarterback. He's going to get paid. There's no way they play Dalton and say, no, we're going to go cheaper here. I can't imagine Jerry doing that.
But he's not going to get paid 40. He's not going to get paid 40.
He's not going to get paid 40. I'm telling you that right now. I could tell you that. They're arguing his value being in the low 30s to like the mid 30s. Mahomes is the only one who has a chance of touching 40. The high number right now, I think, is 33, 32. So there's no way Dak is getting 40. They're not going that far over.
Well, that's
a couple million and all kinds of other recapture and guaranteed money. Like those are the things that are really getting argued more than his exact salary number. It's probably all the semantics, no trade clauses, length, guaranteed money. That's more of the stuff that's important for their negotiations. But I could very well see Dak having another season like he just had where he was pretty good, not great. I saw today someone was tweeting about how his numbers against better teams were really bad. Like they just weren't top tier. He feasted on lesser opponents. So I could see him still getting a contract of about like 3 years, $90 million, like Kirk Cousins just got from the Vikings a few years ago. Something like that could be in his range if he doesn't go berserk. But I can't imagine a situation where Andy Dalton is the one taking over at his age into an offense. He doesn't have the upside to win you a Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts, on the other hand, not only does he possess that upside, we just saw him have a couple of fantastic years with Alabama and Oklahoma putting up great numbers. But he could get on the field even if Wentz is healthy in gadget plays and packages and things like that. And Philly fans are pretty passionate. He comes in and makes a couple of splash plays and Wentz has a couple of bad games. They're going to hear about it. They're going to be things going on like that. And Wentz is way more likely to get hurt. So it's just another reason that Hurts can end up getting in. And if he plays great, you remember Alex Smith on the 49ers, you might not get your job back, even if you were playing well. If a young guy comes in and shows more upside, he's a better player. The NFL doesn't care. The better guy's going to play.
Right. And I agree completely. But the whole thing that I'm saying is that, yes, and I'm going to say this with all transparency. There is no bias in me with that because I never agreed with any of that. When I saw that and I saw that number, yeah, okay, it was the highest guaranteed contract ever in the history of the league, surpassing Kirk Cousins' $84 million guaranteed. Now, you have, I think it was 100. I think it broke 100, if I'm not mistaken, in guaranteed money. Which, I mean, really, that's just Jeffrey Lurie's problem. That's his wallet's problem. When he looks at it and says, "Oh, it's empty." And what did I get? I got one Super Bowl with Nick Foles, who was a backup for me. I never agreed with the whole thing. I didn't even want, and I'm going to say this, I didn't want Carson Wentz. When it was Nick Foles or Wentz, I wanted Foles. I wanted Foles because it just seemed like he was a little bit more durable, which, again, is an absolute joke because we look back to last year and he broke his collarbone on play number 3 against with the Jaguars. And he would have been cheaper about that much. Is a lot there's a lot of politics that you're going to be seeing here. You look at the schedule for the Cowboys. They start off in LA, the Rams, they open up SoFi Stadium. Then they come home. They have their home opener against Atlanta. They have a pretty favorable schedule. And I think that this favors Dak Prescott as well, because you have Atlanta, a team where they strip their whole defense.
You realize the Eagles and Cowboys have 85% the same schedule, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at it, but also
there's only two teams that they play different the whole year.
Yeah, no, I'm well aware. But the one difference is that home and away is a massive factor. And the Eagles host Seattle, which they never win against Seattle, either there or at home. So it doesn't matter. The Cowboys go to Seattle. They welcome in Atlanta, which the Eagles do not play Atlanta because they welcome in New Orleans, which is even harder. They welcome in the Rams. Nick, your thought. I see you're questionable.
I'm trying to figure something out here. So wait, they play the whole Seattle division is what you're saying? Okay.
Correct. Yes.
I was just trying to put that together. I'm like, wait, how do they both play Seattle, but only one plays Atlanta? And then I'm realizing it was different divisions.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to connect the dots in my head.
Yeah. So then, right. And then the Cowboys welcome in Arizona. They welcome in Pittsburgh. So they have the home field advantage there. And Nick, we were also talking about Arizona too, where they could be, and you thought that they could potentially start off, a little hot. And they're in Baltimore. They're at Cincinnati. They welcome in San Francisco. A lot of these favorable matchups that are pretty good in favor of Dak. That's why I'm saying that just by looking at this schedule that was released last night, less than 24 hours ago, you got to think to yourself, yeah, there's pressure on Wentz, but this schedule here is just it's screaming that the Cowboys should win this division. Hands down. And home and away, it really does make a difference.
Yeah.
Anybody?
But the games that the Cowboys have home, the Eagles are going to be on the road, and vice versa. The Eagles are going to have some games where they're at home against teams that the Cowboys would rather have at home. Like, it's all going to even out, really. The schedules are razor thin of difference. I don't think that's going to play into this at all.
The legendary Don Shula passed away at age 90 this past week. Our condolences out to the entire Shula family, to the Miami Dolphins family. Don Shula brought the Miami Dolphins their first ever Super Bowl. There's really not much more to say. I mean, he's a legend. He is one of the best head coaches of all time. I can't say the best. He was the best until Bill Belichick came in. Yeah.
The only undefeated season.
Yep. The only one. Yep. And that was the year they won the Super Bowl, obviously. Really
72
sad.
Dolphins?
Yep. I believe so. Yep. So again, from all of us at the Eastern Observer, a very difficult time for the entire Dolphins family and Don Shula, or for the Shula family as well. So our condolences out to their family.
While we're on the subject, I didn't put it on the prompt. It literally just happened like an hour ago, but Woody and Christopher Johnson, the owners of the Jets, their mother passed away today too.
Our condolences out to the Johnson family as well. And a little side note, everybody, but 2020 can go to the rear as soon as possible. It's a rough time, that's for sure. We got about another few more minutes until Golden Stick Wiffle Ball Rob comes in. And right now we look and we see, speaking about the Jets, we're going to piggyback off of that, what Nick said. Have we seen the last of Quincy Enunwa? And it stinks because Quincy Enunwa had a ton of upside. And the reason why we bring this up is because Josh Bellamy and Enunwa were both placed on the PUP list, and that will eventually transfer over into the injured reserve. They both can't play, and Enunwa has had some neck injuries the last couple of years where he has not been able to even work out, do anything. So I don't know, guys. I think that, when it's a neck injury, you have guys like, it's very difficult to come back from a neck injury and play at 100%.
Yeah, I don't see him coming back. It's too big a risk at this point. I thought he might have a chance of being healthy for this season, but it just never materialized, and I can't imagine he puts his body on the line. Just obviously, neck is as serious as anything you're going to have. And the fact that it's been years now since he's played just shows that it's just not going to happen. It's probably over. And you're right. He was a 7th-round pick who ended up making the team. He had one really good year. He earned this contract. He worked his way up to the point that he had gotten to. It's just really disappointing to see something like this take him down.
Tyler, anything?
Yeah, it's a shame. You know, I obviously I don't care for the Jets, but he was definitely one of the few glimmers of excitement, or I guess you could say hope, that the team had for a little while, that things were starting to go the right way. Obviously, this was before, guys like Jamal Adams and Darnold showed up, but he was like the beginning of the light at the end of the tunnel for that team. So it's it's a shame to see. It's a higher probability than not that he's not going to play again.
So with that being said, we do have another couple of minutes. I do want to just get to one more NFL topic, which just happened this past week. It came official from Commissioner Roger Goodell, most likely from his, let's call it, home office in Bronxville. The NFL international games, Denver versus Atlanta, will now be played in Atlanta, and every other game that was slated to be played overseas and also in Mexico will now be played at each other's home sites or at their respective home building. It's all being now going to be played domestically. A good idea, bad idea, smart idea. I'll start first and I'll say it's one word answer. It's smart. That's just me.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's no reason to have them travel with this whole thing going on. We don't know where any specific country, including our own, is going to be when that time comes in the fall. So it's easier just to make everything simplified and keep everybody here. Travel bans could still be up in certain places. Who knows what's going to be happening? You just can't predict it. So simplify everything as much as possible.
So, yeah, I think it's definitely the right move to make right now. There's no arguing that. I'm sure, depending on how the season plays out for some of these teams, you might see some of the more miserable fans come out and start complaining that, certain teams had an advantage of having the game moved to their own stadium. And it wasn't, it turned out to be a lopsided game. But I mean, if we want to be real, the diehard fans are traveling with the teams to Mexico and London to see the games anyway. So it's not going to make that much of a difference.
Yeah, and you did have, and I will say, you did have a lot of fans that would come from the United States and go abroad to England, that would go to Mexico. And they actually did really well, especially in London too, when they went over there, because you have a lot of residents over in London or Great Britain, and they've now become American football fans. So it's definitely a loss to them, but it is the advantage of the players, of course, for their safety and everything else there. So a shame, but we won't be seeing any 9:30 a.m. games anytime soon, which, as we just saw Nick rolling his eyes, he didn't really like anyway, because he usually sleeps till about 10:30 anyway. But give or take, if you will. But yeah, no, for me, those days were very, very long. So we will not be seeing that till 2021, till 21. Yeah, I get that mixed up. All right. Well, it is Golden Stick Wiffle Ball time, ladies and gentlemen. For those that do not know, we have partnered at the Eastern Observer, have partnered with Golden Stick Wiffle Ball. Excuse me. And it's been a lot of fun. We've had fantastic guests on, such as Anthony starts with an M, his last name.
No, it does not.
All right. Well, we had them on. We had John DeNaro on. We had a whole bunch of guys on. So now we got Rob on. Rob, how you doing?
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. Tyler, take it away.
Rob, what's going on, my man?
Doing well, gentlemen. How is everyone? Thanks.
We're all doing all right. We're doing the best we can. For those who don't know, this is Rob Longeroux, co-director of the New York region for Golden Stick Wiffle Ball, also the owner of the New York Hammerheads, one of the more successful teams in the league. Rob, obviously you're doing all right, doing some bird watching.
course. Very busy.
Always got a bird watch. So I think one of the big questions that most people in the league want to know, because there hasn't been anything official released, May 17th.
Am I going to be the bearer of bad news? I mean, I'm going to just announce what we pretty much assume at this point is that we're likely not to play. The reason we haven't officially canceled is because we haven't actually gotten official word from anywhere. And that's kind of been a problem throughout this whole thing is depending on where you are, when you are, no one really has the right answer right now. And everything's projected. And the way we saw it, Anthony and myself, the other director for people who don't know at home, decided that no one's really doing anything else right now. So if we had to cancel the week of, that's really not an issue at this point. And if it happens to, go off, then, we play. And if people don't show, it's fine. I think from a safety standpoint and from a logistical standpoint, it's just not going to happen. And we're looking at June at this point.
Yeah, it's very hard to, as a player or an outsider to start pointing fingers at anybody, being from the town, I guess working with the town as far as whether we can even get on the field or not. They probably have 100 things running through their heads. You and Food Man, Anthony Dioria, have 100 things running through your heads. I'm sure, myself included, have people probably texting you every day.
Yeah,
it's overwhelming. So it's hard to point fingers, but obviously, if we got to skip a week now to keep everybody safe and have a full attendance in June, it's the best move.
Yeah, I mean, as a player, the reason I do this, I'm a player first. So the player in me wants to play, right? I mean, ask any ball player, ask any college athlete, high school athlete, they want to be out there and playing. But at the end of the day, you think about what is going on, and it's just, even if it's allowed, quote unquote, you still almost feel uneasy at the very beginning. So we'll take it slow, and all our players are here and we're ready. And I think it's kind of been a unique time to be able to do content like this, where normally we're so busy with everything that's going on, not even only in your real life, but within the sports leagues and all that we have a little more time to talk. And a lot of times the season comes and goes so fast, and such is life. It comes and goes. And, if you don't, reward the moments and really talk about them, you lose them. So I'm happy to be here and chat.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're definitely glad to have you. Definitely open up a new group of people to the league. Obviously, we're always looking for teams, always looking for guys to come to the golf season. The last couple of years, that's definitely been a big way of how people have dipped their toes in the water of the league. So it's important to keep the ball rolling to some capacity. So with all the depressing talk out of the way, so tell everybody about your team.
My team. So like I said before, I'm a player first. So the reason I run the league is because I, originally started, playing hardcore and had to find another vehicle to play more competitively outside of the backyard. So once I found different tournaments and things and found Golden Stick, I co-ran it for a couple of years, and then Anthony and myself took it over. But in my head, that's why the way we run things is very player driven, because, the guys who run it are still playing. So my team at this point is highly competitive. We actually won the regional title for the first time in 11 years. We've been running it. This will be our 12th year in 2020. And, I finally got over that hump. So I'm happy to have a really solid team. I'm keeping Tom Polly, who's one of the better players around. He's getting older in terms of wiffle age and in terms of adulthood. So he obviously has a lot of other endeavors going on. He has a semi-music career. He's a junior engineer. He's got a girlfriend and a life and the whole deal, just like everyone in this league. So that's kind of what makes wiffle ball unique, is we all come from different walks of life and have a million different things going on. So squeezing wiffle ball in on a weekend is kind of just an interesting little caveat to everyone's life, but it's interesting in how competitive we are. So I did add, basically Hall of Fame players in Ken Rogers Jr. and Senior. So a father-son combo. Another awesome thing about wiffle ball is the all ages capacity, the family unification type things. That's where you grow up playing with your grandparents, your brothers, your sisters, your uncles, all that stuff. So kind of a cool thing. I've played with Tom for a very long time, and the Kennys obviously don't need any really introduction, but they are a father-son duo who, or 20, 25 years apart or so, and both mash the ball and are amazing humans, which is another amazing thing about our league, is just have an awesome crew of characters. Characters is what they are.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had the opportunity to play with junior and senior. I hear nothing but great things about them. I was lucky enough to play my first season in the league on the same team as Tom Polly. It was me, him, and you might know this kid, Chris Bayo. So yeah, it was definitely. It's hard to argue that Tom Polly's, he's absolutely top 10 in the league, and some weeks he comes out top 5. So he's definitely, no matter what team you put him on, he's by far an asset. He makes your team better just by standing on the sideline with you.
And we dumped Phil Freziello, who's one of the worst players in the league. So it was amazing that we were able to win a regional title with, one of the worst players in the league. So it goes to show how good Tom Polly is. I'm just a run-of-the-mill player, I play hard. I hit some home runs. I talk some shit. And, that's what Whiffs is about.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really explain to people how competitive it is when you're an outsider. Because I'll be the first to tell you, it was I was a kid just Googling wiffle ball leagues in New York. I got lucky and found Golden Stick, and I'm like, all right, it's just a bunch of guys. They make teams every Sunday, and we just play. And then I show up to Bay Park on my first day in 2012, and it's the 6 or 7 fields set up, uniforms, these moonshot bats. I had never seen a $100 plus bat before in my life. It's like you walk up and you're like, all right, this yellow bat can go in the dumpster. And it's just, it's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, we've tried to make, this wiffle ball circuit more than just a game of wiffle ball. It really is taken way too far, like our tagline is. And it's really about uniting people from their backyard into an atmosphere where others are playing, just like a softball league, because you know what, people know softball, and really a wiffle ball league is the same thing. It's definitely has a niche talent level or a niche skill set, but all that can be learned. And there is just a steeper curve because you don't play wiffle ball in gym class. You don't learn the quote unquote fundamentals of wiffle ball at the level that we play. Everyone may know how to play with the yellow bat in their backyard, but the style that, and not just our style, there are other styles all across the country that are played, and any outsider who is not used to being outside their backyard definitely takes a step back and says, whoa, these guys might throw the ball 90 miles an hour. They might run the bases. They might scuff the ball. They might use big bats. There's a million different ways to play the game. And that, to me, that's what, whenever I have these conversations with quote unquote outsiders, I just want to, reiterate how amazing the game is because of that. I would never force the way that we play on anyone. It just works where we are right now, whether it's our summer league, our fall league. And again, it's what I love to do, and what 100 other guys on the island like to do and beyond. So it's a pretty cool thing.
So one of the things I had been talking to Food about a couple weeks ago was bringing new teams or players individually into the league, and essentially keeping them. Which obviously gets kind of.
Looks like we may have lost Tyler there. What a shot that is! Where that is. Wow, that is something. That is something. We definitely got to get that. And good thing we are recording there. Tyler, Go ahead, continue.
So I don't know how much of me you heard, so I'm just going to repeat the whole statement. A couple weeks back, I was talking to Food about how we can keep new teams or individual players essentially coming back into the league to help expand. And we talked about a couple of different things, but the main thing was people not knowing anything about the league, or just hearing that there was this wiffle ball league that played Eisenhower and anybody can come. And then they see the whole new element of Golden Stick and they get intimidated right away. The most recent example we had of this was, I think that the team name was the Force last year, where it was a group of 12 and 13-year-old kids, which I think my personal opinion is, nobody expects to do well their first time around. I didn't start winning games regularly until I was in my third or fourth year here. So what do you think is the easiest way to start pushing people to essentially not buy into the Golden Stick way, but to understand it, to be able to be a competitive player?
Well, I think there's different ways to approach it. I mean, we've as a brand, we've tried to be national in the past, so we do have a far-reaching rapport with people all over the country. But for me personally, it's more about, the home region right now, right? On Long Island, especially on Long Island, because we are so concentrated. People are always looking for things to do on Long Island, especially different things. I really think wiffle ball sells itself to some degree, but I agree with you in terms of, showing up to our highly competitive format and being a little overwhelmed. I think with any sport or league or business, to some degree, you have to say, take it or leave it. This is the brand we've built. We have 20 plus teams where we are very successful. We've slowly brought new players in through our fall league, through different select events. So, I don't want to go straight too far from the recipe that has grown the league, but there is so much potential in everyday weekend warriors that may just play once, twice, but may eventually start to play a little more than that. Case in point, 2011, which is now going to be 9 years ago in July, we ran one of our largest events. It was a fast pitch event, which was highly competitive with guys from all over the Northeast. And at the time I had a hookup in Newsday, and they I should have pulled it out for the interview. I apologize. They printed a 2-page in the weekend thing, part 2, whatever they'd have in Newsday, and it was all about wiffle ball. It was called Wiffle Wars, had pictures of Golden Stick logos and Anthony Didio's and Kenny Juniors and all like the guys that we know as like real good mainstays. And this whole article about wiffle ball on Long Island. And just from that article, we were able to get 8 one-day teams within 24 hours. So things like that aren't that hard to do. But when you're managing 20 teams and 2 other jobs in real life, and, it really is not a business where we're here to make money. We're here to, really just provide this amazing game for big guys, especially in this area where it's pretty easy to get to from, there's a lot of millions and millions of tens of millions of people within 35 miles of Eisenhower Park. So our reach doesn't have to be that far, but we can grab a lot of people at once. So there's different methods to, providing, mainstays. But I think our fall league has been the best recipe to find one-day teams and players who may play and feel overwhelmed, but there's 2 guys on that team that didn't feel overwhelmed and say they want more. And they come back in the fall and can play on any team, and they finagle their way through. There is at some point you have to make the player make a decision that they're going to get better or try to fit in. So.
Yeah. So one of the things I definitely, I actually played against the team we were just talking about before, the Force, last season. And naturally, just being young kids wanting to learn, they came up to my team after the game. They were asking us questions and what they could do. One of the first things I tell, new people or quote unquote rookies, the first thing I would do, go to the Golden Stick website, hit up the rule book, get the dimensions for the zone, build a zone, set it up in your backyard, and whenever you have free time, throw. When I was first in the league, obviously I came in not knowing about the whole cut ball concept. That was another thing that kind of slapped me blind my first day. I remember after my first day, I would walk around, I would look for any cracked balls on the ground. I take them with me because no one's using them. Look at the cuts, try and mimic them, and see if I can find something that worked for me. And eventually, I did. And it's a cut I've used ever since probably week 3 or 4 back in Bay Park. So there's definitely so many different ways to keep people involved, keep them coming back, wanting more, wanting to get competitive, and ultimately letting them build that drive for competitive success through the league on their own.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we've provided, a league or tournament structure that kind of gives everyone what they could want out of it. Everyone has their own prerogative. They might be there to win. They might be there for the money. They might be there to have a good time. They might be there to just learn the game. So there's opportunity in every one of our events to get that out of it. That's what we've always had, because you may never be really good. Your teams may never be great, but you can finagle your way in and get what you want out of it. You know, it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It's something to do on the weekend. It's something else to learn that's new. And what is cool about wiffle ball is that, you know, there's so many different styles. There's no right or wrong way to play the game. You know, there's no real set rules aside from the ground rules that are out there. So, you know, for months before this pandemic hit, you were bugging me every week about, you know, bowling. And, you know, wiffle ball and bowling to me are so similar. In that it's a niche sport. You know, there's people kind of make fun of you when you talk about it, but you know, there's a lot of skill involved and it's a lot of fun. So
yeah, I learned the hard way. I'm still learning the hard way.
It's bowling. Name an obscure sport. I got your beat. So
yeah, I mean, going off topic for about 15 seconds, I finally got the ball. I had ordered a brand new pair of shoes, and then the next day the lane's closed. So my shoes are still in the box. The ball still has a fresh coat of, ball cleaner on it, and it's sitting in the bag somewhere in that corner of my room.
I got about a dozen of them sitting to my right here. They're all in their bags. I leave them in my car upstairs in my house. I finally brought. This is the longest I haven't bowled in 15 years, probably since I was in ninth grade.
I think, obviously with the exception of opening day of Golden Stick, I think the first place I'm going as soon as they open is definitely the bowling alley. I'm going to be there for about 6 hours or just until my arm falls off my body.
I project that I won't be bowling until at least September.
Wow. I don't like that. All right. I got one last question before you go. Personal and team expectations for this year coming off of winning the New York region.
We'll likely win again.
Likely win again.
We have a much stronger roster. And now with everything going on, I don't believe that ECW, which is another wiffle ball league that plays fast pitch up in upstate New York, formerly Palisades Wiffle Ball, I don't believe they're going to be playing this season, which I was worried about with Kenny a little bit because we were all probably playing that as well. So, and with possibly things not opening, Tom Polly's musical career might be a little on hold this summer. So I expect better attendance than I had last year. For us to be able to win the regional championship with pretty questionable attendance last year, I think will only be better this year. But new team, new chemistry, we might not play up to our potential, but our goal is the open. If we win or lose the regional, I don't really care. But outside of 2016, me, Tom, and Frank finished in third place. That's the best I've ever finished, and since then it's been 5th to 10th place, somewhere in there. And I'd like to win that before I'm shot.
Couldn't blame you. I mean, it's definitely. I don't know it firsthand. I know it from other sports, but it's hard to picture going down after finishing on top the year before.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rob, I can't thank you enough for being here. Obviously, just to take everybody's minds off a couple of things on Friday nights for 2 hours and then to come hang out with us for about 25 minutes. It means a lot to us. Can't thank you enough for helping us out. You guys can check out Rob on the Let's Go Sunday podcast. You can check it out right through their YouTube. You can check it out right through their Facebook page at Golden Stick. Rob, anything?
No, you guys are awesome. Enjoy the night. Thank you for having me.
Rob, thank you very much. Stay safe, stay healthy. And that's and hopefully Golden Stick will be active in the next couple of months or weeks, or let's hope weeks for you guys,
I want my wiffle balls.
Yeah, we're working on it. I'll get you. Gentlemen, thank you.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep. Thanks, Rob. Have a great night. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that was Golden Stick Wiffle Balls, Rob Longiaro.
Right. Joe, I just want to cut you off really quick because you managed to give me such a hard time before.
Well, I will tell you one thing, Tyler, and let me just say this. I do apologize if Anthony Dioria is watching. I got it, and I got mixed up with another friend of yours, Dan Mora, okay? So I do apologize. You have a lot of friends, Tyler. It's very difficult.
I have a lot of friends, but again, I'm still going to cut you off for
Let's
two
hear it.
reasons. One, I don't like you, and two, I want to get a good laugh out of you. So you made sure to give me such a hard time when my camera froze. I just want to let you know my phone absolutely exploded with pictures of the freeze. So thank you for that. I can already see that that's going to be this week's thumbnail. So thanks for that.
I'm just really hoping I'd be the only one who got a good shot of it just to say that. But damn, everyone was right on it. I'm happy.
Yeah, I got that about 6 times in about 30 seconds. So
let me tell you something. And now actually it's very funny because we still have about another 8 more minutes, Bob, before we get Daily Dose of Hoops, Jaden Daly and NCAA Hoops Digest contributor Jake Zimmer in here. But I do have to find a few on Twitter where I've used that as a thumbnail because Tyler's expressions are fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And it's not that he does it on purpose. It's just, it's perfect. So I think we're going to share the screen here and I want to show everybody what we're seeing here. And just by looking at this here, so there's no reaction here. Okay. And we're going to get to where Tyler is literally like this. And it is a perfect shot. It is a fantastic.
Bottom?
Say that one more time.
Why am I on the bottom?
Hey, listen, I don't know, man. I have no control over that. That's for sure. But going back to here, if I can find it, if I can't, then, well, oh, here we go. Okay. We did get it. And this one is absolutely fantastic. Where it's Tyler holding up that, and I just think it's absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, if you look at it, you look at Nick on the bottom. He is very, very, very focused.
He's the same face in every shot.
That's what it is.
He doesn't look for it. I laugh. I make expressions. They're not as good as Tyler's. So they're not sought out.
You have to make expressions, and then all the time it doesn't. Your camera never freezes when it's your turn. It's stupid.
So I will tell you this. I will tell you this, fellas, is that Tyler, in addition to not a Coke, in addition to his cat being the best meower that we've ever heard out of the history of kittens, I think we need to see the cat.
It's unconscious.
It? No, it's not an it. Is it a he or a she?
That's a good question. Let's check.
Oh no.
All right. Well, now we might have to. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyler's cat has made an appearance, and it's very similar to when Bill Belichick's dog made an appearance. That is a pretty good comparison.
Yeah,
Tyler.
Except Bill Belichick's dog is light years ahead of my cat in intelligence.
I heard Bill Belichick was saying the other day that his dog is preparing for the supplemental draft. So that's one good boy.
That would be something for sure. So with 5 minutes to go, fellas, until we get our next guests aboard here, is there any specific schedule that you've looked at, such as the Giants and the Jets? I want to start with Nick, and you look at the Jets schedule, where they have a pretty tough road. And right now I believe they go to Denver. They play in the Mile High City. Not easy.
I think Denver's at home. That's a Thursday night game at MetLife.
Okay, well then forget that. Then you might as well say the rest of it.
Well, they have to go. Well, the toughest part of their schedule, in my opinion, is they have a back-to-back trip out west with Seattle and the Rams. So that's going to be rough. But they were able to. Apparently, Joe Douglas reached out to the league because they knew they were going to have to play both those games on the road and got them back-to-back weeks. So they're going to stay out there.
Right.
So we're able to limit the damage there. The schedule's kind of quirky for like the worst 12 weeks. I think it's home road, home road, home road. They don't have any back-to-backs until that they have a 2-game home stretch right before the 2-game West Coast string. But they got to play both Super Bowl combatant teams. They got to play the Niners. They got to play the Chiefs. They really have a brutally tough schedule this year. And the team doesn't look like it's a Super Bowl contender anyway. So, but it's not going to be easy for a guy like Darnold who's still trying to get his footing and the whole new offensive line trying to find chemistry with a shortened off season. It's going to be really tough sledding. I can't imagine they come out of this year with more than 5 or 6 wins again because it's just not the time. So it's going to be rough.
It's crazy.
We have to play the Patriots twice without Tom Brady. So we finally got what we wanted. I can't complain that much because the biggest pain in the neck about our schedule every year has been limited significantly. Plus, the first game we play against them without Brady is a Monday night game. So that should be fun.
So you look at the strength of schedule and you look from the easiest on paper to the worst on paper. And the easiest is the Indianapolis Colts, where their strength of schedule or the teams that they play is a 480 or 48%. Then you look at Tennessee, which is right below them, 488. Baltimore, 49.4. Then you go all the way down the list and you have the Jets at 52, or rather you could round it up to 53%. And then, or a winning percentage of 52.7. And then you also look at the Giants, who never, and I hate to say this because I can't stand the Giants, but I will say this. Every single year, wherever they place, they could be first place, second place, third place. They could be dead last in the division. And this past year, they finished, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was third in the division. And they still have the league's second hardest schedule. It's not that it's a shame. But you know what? These teams, if they want to win, they're going to find a way to win. And no, seriously, they're going to.
He's laughing about something else.
I'm not laughing at you. I was scrolling through Bleacher Report really quick to see if we had anything to cover, any updates before our next guests come on. And Florida governor is taking shots at the Miami Marlins, and I love it.
Well. That'll be that.
I don't know if you had heard really quickly about the rumors last week. He was going to start allowing 25% capacity to all sporting events. And he was asked about baseball and what they were doing, and specifically the Miami Marlins came up. And he was asked about the crowds of baseball. Obviously, baseball stadiums can fit upwards of 50,000 people in some locations.
Well, Miami's not like that.
His response to the Miami Marlins was going to a Miami Marlins game is kind of like social distancing anyway.
That's brutal.
Well, I will tell you this, Governor Ron DeSantis, you are not wrong.
No, he's not wrong. It was kind of
and not only that too, it is a lot of fun. A Marlins game is a lot of fun. The ballpark is fantastic, but there's no one ever there. Nick, final thought.
One quick thing I want to say about strength of schedule is the numbers that you're bringing up are based on teams' records last year. It's really hard to apply that to this year, knowing that how much turnover there is in the NFL, how quickly teams can rise and fall. We saw the Rams in the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden last year they didn't make the playoffs. Things like this happen all the time.
Yep.
A better way of looking at it, there are other metrics that are used, like what's it called? Strength of look. There are ways to analyze it based on teams where they are now, teams that have made improvements and lost things. Like teams that are playing the Patriots based on last year's strength of schedule number is going to be far different than playing a Patriots team this year that's far inferior. We know that. So there are different ways to check it. Every way I've seen it, though, the Jets and Giants both have brutally tough schedules this year. It's just how it's played out. They're playing legitimately good teams that are good last year and should definitely be good again. But in reality, none of this could matter. All the teams that we think are good could be different. Mahomes could tear his ACL week 1 and change everyone's schedules up. It's really tough to look at strength of schedule and get that much out of it. There are very few games that you can guarantee are going to be tough. That's why venue is a big part of it. Going to Seattle, going to Kansas City. Even if those teams are bad, those are really tough places to play. So things like that are just as important as who the opponent is, because who knows really how great each team is going to be. You never know, other than the Belichick-Brady Patriots, how a team's going to be.
That's very true. But, ladies and gentlemen, let's finally admit Jake Zimmer and Jaden Daly. So, Jaden Daly, ladies and gentlemen, Daily Dose of Hoops. Jaden, Jake, Tyler, and Nick, you guys can see each other there. Jake, we got a little There you go. You can see a little blurry there, but I think we got you. All right. Where is Jaden Daly? He's somewhere over there. Let's see. There we go. And he's got the virtual background up there. I like that. Fellas, how you guys doing? Uh-oh. We're going in and out here.
You can't see Jaden. I think you're blessed with my presence instead for now. But guys, thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Jake, how you doing, buddy? Good to hear from you. Good to see you again. How are things up by you?
Everything's good. I have flocked from Providence down to Connecticut. Fairfield County is where I originally called home and did for the first 22 years of my life. So down here, hanging out with the parents, hanging out with the family, and it's day by day at this point. We're close to turning a corner, and you being down in New York, I think it's decelerating a little bit slower than it is up here in Rhode Island. Rhode Island lifted the stay-at-home order today, so. Moving in the right direction.
It's tough. Yeah, it's 100% tough. The three of us are actually now with Jaden here, and we could hear you. We could see you, Jaden. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing awesome, Joe. How about yourself?
It's not too bad. Look who we have joined with us here, just right above you, Jaden. You got Jake Zimmer, your boy over here from NCAA College Hoops Digest.
Jake, how are you, buddy?
Jaden, always a pleasure. It's been, I think it's probably been 3 months, right? Down at the Dunk.
Yeah, 3 months next week. Wow. It feels like 3 years.
Time really does fly. It's absolutely crazy. And for those that do not know, so I will announce this actually. Jake Zimmer is going to be on the Zoom interview series, May 26th, I believe it is, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Just, I believe, a couple episodes after Jaden Daly, who's going to be on, I believe, May 18th. So it's going to be a lot of fun. These guys are going to be interviewing them. It's going to be a lot of fun there on the podcast byproduct, if you will. And of course, this is not only the first time that, this is going to be a long-standing relationship here on the Primetime Rundown. I can't wait for you guys to be on here during college basketball season, if there is one. But there's so much to talk about, fellas, because I know Jaden Daly, he covers, not only does he cover the MAC, but he also covers Seton Hall like a book. It's absolutely crazy how much he knows. And Jake Zimmer, how I met you at Bryant with St. Francis College, Brooklyn, when you were doing the PA, which is really small world when you know all the guys that I know from down here up 300 miles north. Absolutely crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, it's really funny because I think part of half of the reason that I'm keeping up with the PA and still sticking with it as I've left school and have transitioned into the real world is just for connections like that. I'll always make a point to obviously introduce myself to whatever SID is around, and you never know what kind of connections are going to come out of that. And all of a sudden, it was a Monday night. Terriers were up in town playing Smithfield, and lo and behold, all the connections that we share together. That's just one of many stories that I can tell you over the past couple of years at Bryant, whether it be Providence College doing the soccer teams or up at BU, whatever it is. Really, it's that part of this business is so fascinating.
Yeah, and also for those that do not know, Jake Zimmer has also been featured, not only featured, but also has called games on CBS All Access, has called games for BU, has called games for NEC Front Row, a lot of, top to bottom, but also no stranger to Jaden Daly because he is the United States Merchant Marine Academy football team's lead play-by-play guy. He also covers St. John's basketball, St. John's baseball as well at times on RedStormSports.com or ESPN3 along those lines. So, we have a lot of experience between the three of us here. So really glad that you guys could be a part of this. But let's get things rolling here. And the biggest reason why I wanted you guys on, not only because I love you guys, because you guys are great. And, I've known Jaden Daly for the last I think it's going to be now 4 years, which is it's daunting, Jaden. We're getting old there, man.
We actually met at St. John's baseball, Joe. You introduced yourself to me.
That's right.
At SJU Radio, and I can't tell you how proud I am that you and Kevin and Brendan and Anthony after you have upheld the tradition that I helped resurrect. I can't tell you how much it means to me to see what you guys have done and picked up on what we had and built and made it better.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I do appreciate those kind words, Jaden, because that definitely, it's a soft spot for sure. So while these two guys here to my left, they're going to take a little bit of a break here. They're, hanging out there and listening and obtaining the college basketball knowledge that Jaden Daly has, gotten to absorb over the last however many years Daily Dose of Hoops has been in business. But right now, business is booming for you, Jaden, even though that college basketball right now is not going on. There's no activities. There's no in-person activities, recruiting, none of those things, but still phone calls and everything can still be going on. And now with in the Big East right now, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk just today that campuses, if they are not open, we will not be seeing the student athletes play. That's obviously, that goes back to everything that we've been talking about throughout this entire show. Between me, Tyler, and Nick, it's all the same thing between, whether it be football, whether it's soccer, or it's basketball, or even the South Korean baseball league, whatever the case may be. But with UConn, fellas, Adama Sanogo, Jaden Daly. Did I get that right? I believe I did.
You did.
Adama Sanogo. And he has come out and said that UConn he felt that it was a better situation to get into the NBA as quickly as possible, according to Patrick School head coach Chris Chavanes. And he said this was the exact quote. Quote, he was looking for a place where he felt he could get to the NBA at a very quick pace. He felt that UConn was better than Seton Hall for that. He felt he had a better situation to get to the league as quickly as possible. Now, Jaden, you cover Seton Hall. You have a season credential. You cover them all the time, right next to, of course, your coworker, Jason Garrett, along with Chris McManus and also Josh Adams as well. Sometimes I'm there along the line as well. But I want to hear your thoughts about if UConn, if this is just to brew a mini rivalry, with UConn coming back into the Big East. What are your thoughts on that?
Not for nothing, Joe. I actually think Adama Sanogo is right about UConn having a better path to the NBA in Seton Hall. One aspect in that regard, Tom Moore, one of Dan Hurley's assistants, someone that I've been blessed to know from when he was the head coach at Quinnipiac and having covered him in the MAC for so many years and even in the NEC before that. When he was with Jim Calhoun for 13 years before he got the head job at Quinnipiac, he worked on developing a who's who of UConn big men into the NBA. Guys like Travis Knight, guys like Emeka Okafor, Rudy Gay, Charlie Villanueva. You look at that resume, and with all due respect to Seton Hall, you have NBA pedigree, which is something that the Seton Hall program has not really had since Samuel Dalembert. Angel Delgado had a cup of coffee with the Clippers a couple of years ago, but Kevin Willard really hasn't been able to get that Pied Piper, so to speak, to play at the next level and make a career at the next level. And if you're a 17-year-old kid, you're looking at college as a placeholder. You're looking at somewhere that you can play for a year or two, hone your skills, and ultimately make a living. And at the end of the day, UConn, with its history, has that over Seton Hall. I don't disagree with his thought process or his rationale in that regard at all.
Now, Jake, I want to hear your thoughts now because you are up in the New England area. And what have you heard about this with UConn and how this could affect potentially? Would this be a little bit of a rivalry? Just by a little blurb. Could this be the start of something new? Of a rivalry between Sanogo and Seton Hall? Would there be some hatred between fans, maybe?
Oh, I'm sure you can't count that out, right? I mean, you can already see UConn fans picking fights with the Providence fans on Twitter. My favorite part of this whole thing is the No Escalators Twitter account from the UConn fans. They'll go out and list the power rankings and intentionally omit Providence from the entire rankings. So you have to admit the rivalries there. And I think Jaden took the words out of my mouth. You look at the guys that have come out of the NBA or come out of the UConn program to go to the NBA, that is. There's 5 there currently now. But you have guys, as Jaden mentioned, like Walker, like Rudy Gay, like Andre Drummond, that, that's a very small sample size even right now of the history of NBA players that UConn's been able to put out. Seton Hall, you look on the other hand, they've really had nobody in the past 20, 25 years other than Samuel Dallenberg who, it's the jury's still out on what exactly he brought to the game. And then I think another part of, that might add a little bit of tension to this whole thing as well, and maybe add to, or explain rather, why Sanogo might have picked Seton Hall, is that Seton Hall might not have offered that same fast track to the NBA. Let's put it this way. I'm brought back to Kevin Willard's comments right after the game that Jaden and I were both at the Dunkin' Donuts Center on February 15th in Providence. And Kevin Willard got on 970 AM with Gary Cohen and Dave Popkin after the game. And they basically said, what happened? He said, some guys just have bad attitudes and maybe we have to play with 6 guys. That doesn't bode well for a guy that's trying to fast track to the NBA. I understand that, every player has to have some element of team and camaraderie to be a contributor. But when you're trying to go to the NBA and that's your one goal, it's a laser focus. So I think that was the main factor, obviously, in choosing UConn over Seton Hall in this scenario.
Yeah, Jaden, do you want to add anything to that, to piggyback off of Jake?
I also think UConn provides more of an immediate opportunity to make an impact. If Sanogo goes to Seton Hall, he's definitely sitting behind Sandro Mamukelashvili. He's likely sitting behind Tyrese Samuel on the bench and only getting in if maybe a Jared Roden or a Takal Molson, who's sitting out from Canisius and will be eligible next season. And there will be a next season, by the way. Speak it into existence, gentlemen. You're looking at maybe the 8th or 9th man as a freshman. Kevin Willard routinely doesn't play his younger guys very often unless in the instance of a Whitehead or a Delgado or a Carrington, they're carrying the team. So you look at that and you look at Dan Hurley and his record with developing players of any size, first at Wagner and then at Rhode Island before UConn, and you have more of a tailor-made opportunity, if you will, to just go ahead and make an impact right away. I think Hurley's style meshes better with a younger player than Kevin Willard, and I think that played a factor as well.
Yeah, I'd have to say that. It's difficult, especially now with Miles Powell gone, Vero Gill gone, Quincy McKnight gone. It's almost like a retool, Jaden, and it's not. It's a little different, where you had, when you had Whitehead, you had Rodriguez, Kadeen Carrington, those guys. You were able to. It was almost like a bridge. You didn't really go down. You kind of went down a little bit, then went up. It's just now you're losing one of the best players in Seton Hall history going down now. They got a couple of transfers, which is nice. They just, I believe, Jaden, a 6'9", 2020 freshman was just committed to Seton Hall. I think actually during the show, if I'm not mistaken.
Jeff Ngandu or Ngandu. Yeah. I'm probably butchering his name, and I apologize to the kid.
Yeah. So he's gonna be now. I guess that would be the backup to Sanogo, because he was highly regarded by Seton Hall and was chased by them too. So we'll see what happens there. Moving forward, and this is something big too, because Jaden Daly, I know for a fact you cover, again, this goes back to the MAC, and with Rick Pitino being at the helm of Iona, there were some allegations that came out against Louisville and also against Rick Pitino, and it looks like Iona is standing behind him, which is a nice thing. Of course, you got to stand behind your brand new coach, brand new program. He's brought in so many recruits, transfers as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I remember I had seen you tweet out, I think it was like 8 recruits or 8 transfers or 8, just general 8 players of his own players in the last, I think it was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. Something crazy. It was a complete overhaul of the Gales roster.
It's 9 now. He actually just got another commitment earlier this afternoon. Since replacing Tim Kluse about 2 months ago in the middle of March, he's got 9 verbal commitments, 7 in this coming class, and then 2 more in 2021. So he's making quick work of having to rebuild and retool a consistent powerhouse in this area at the mid-major level with a strong incumbent core too. You're looking at Isaiah Washington, Isaiah Ross, Asante Gist has one more year as well. Iona's not going to be this mid-pack team that it was a year ago. This past season, I think, is more of an anomaly, especially with Klus not being around, not being able to play a full non-conference schedule. Iona only got 7 non-conference games because it couldn't get teams to play home-and-home series with them or even schedule them for a guarantee on the road because, let's just face it, Joe, when you've won 4 straight conference championships and you lead North Carolina at halftime of the NCAA tournament, you're not exactly a team that some Power 5 is going to want to play because they're worried about you.
Yeah, that's true. The way I see it is just it's difficult, especially because Tim Klus has done a fantastic job. Jake, you want to add anything to piggyback off of Jaden on that one?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Jaden, and kind of to expand on your point about how Iona's not necessarily going to be the team that they obviously have been this past season, but even in years prior, there was never necessarily a wildly clear favorite in the MAC. I think, Jaden can obviously speak more to that, but they were never, it wasn't every single year where it was Iona's going to kill every single team and come out on top. But you look at the pedigree that Tim Klus had built over the years, and I think over the span of maybe 8 or 9 years, him and Jared Grasso, his right-hand man, who's now up at Bryant, of course, recruited plenty of guys who went on to go play in the pros. I think that number is definitely north of 20 or 25, at least over that span. So adding that on to, a team that is anchored by one of the more successful coaches in college basketball and, obviously the stint in the pros for Pitino, I think will probably bode, really well. And Iona could really be that team in a couple of years where, they might have to start thinking at the very least about, potential options to expand the program.
Now, I have a question for the two of you, because now what we've seen with this level 2 allegation, the notice of allegations that was delivered to Louisville, which included a level 2 violation charge against Pitino for failing to, quote, promote an atmosphere of compliance within the men's basketball program. Yeah, we knew that. 2013, the national championship was stripped vacated by the NCAA. So do we see, Jaden, a potential suspension for Rick Pitino, where it could be half the season, a couple of games, a full year? We may not see him until 2021 or 22.
It is possible, and I would guess maybe a handful of games, almost like what Jim Calhoun got at UConn at the start of the last decade. But I do think whatever sanctions and whatever penalties come down will probably be hit harder toward Louisville. Knowing the Iona administration as I do, Matt Levasky, the AD, and Seamus Carey, the president, knew full well what they were getting into hiring Pitino, knowing that he would come with a cloud of NCAA suspicion. Iona did its due diligence. I don't think that the administration would have made the hire if they didn't already know what could happen. If anything, maybe you're looking at 3 or 4 games, and if that's in the non-conference season, then you punt the non-conference essentially as it is in a 1-bid league. But Iona's thinking long-term after what Klus did for the program in the last 10 years. So I support the hire. Selfishly, I think Jared Grasso would have been the better choice, but it was a win-win situation either way. And I think Iona knows what it's getting into and knows what to expect if there is a fallout that comes to the show.
Yeah, there's a lot, because the moment I saw that, Jaden, I immediately thought of you. I'm thinking to myself, well, you've been writing for Iona for a very long time for Tim Klus, and now you're going to be writing for Iona that is led by a coach that has been through a lot, through scandals left and right with Louisville. He went overseas, came back, was touted by St. John's just a couple of years ago. so you would be front and center because you are, I think, the most loyal Mac writer that there is. And, you and I have spoken about that before, and I know Jake knows this too. And every single person that's out there watching and knows Jaden Daly, it's all the Mac. Following your graduation from the Big East years ago from St. John's. But speaking about them, I do have to ask you this because this does piggyback with the Mac. Now, there were some rumors out there that St. John's, Jaden, all of a sudden had a potential roster spot open. We don't know what the deal is with LJ Figueroa. He is still undecided about staying in the NBA draft. And now there's a guy from Monmouth, graduate transfer. We all know how Nick Rutherford did last year. Really, really good. So let's see if that Monmouth to St. John train could continue rolling. Now, the name Ray Salnave, is that the correct pronunciation? Because today, as you could ask those two guys on the left, my pronunciations have been brutal this evening.
Yep, just the way it sounds, Ray Salnave.
So now with Ray Salnave and him being potentially a part of, I would say, Mike Anderson's roster, do you see him being a fit?
I do. The only problem I have with it, though, St. John's already has so many guards on its roster. You look at Rasheem Dunn. You look at Greg Williams, who had arguably the best stretch run of anybody in the Big East, not named Miles Powell or Marcus Howard. You look at maybe a David Carraher getting more minutes off the bench. Some of the guys Anderson brought in, Pasha Alexander, the incoming guard, Vince Cole, the incoming guard, Dylan Wusu, I believe his name is, another one. You look at that, and my knock on that, if Salnave commits to St. John's, I think it's a great spot for him, and I'll get into that a little bit later on. You're putting in a hired gun at the risk of stunting the growth of some of the younger players. You saw what Greg Williams did down the stretch. He single-handedly won that Creighton game at the end of the season that, had COVID-19 not wiped everything out, would have got St. John's into no less the NIT. So you put in a fifth-year guy and you bring him into the rotation, you're sacrificing valuable minutes for a sophomore going into his junior season, arguably the biggest jump a student athlete can make. And if I'm Mike Anderson, I'm legitimately worried about that.
Yeah, that would definitely be tough. And I know, Jake, that St. John's is not really your territory, but is there anything that you would like to add because of your extreme knowledge of college basketball, which, I figured out when I met you. So is there anything that you'd like to add with the corner of Utopia and Union Turnpike?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about St. John's is that the fact that this is even a problem right now is miles ahead of what people thought this program would be at this point. A lot of questions, obviously, I think we all know as either members or followers of the New York media, how aggressive the fans were towards Chris Mullin, of course. And, when the Mike Anderson hire came around, it was a lot of questions. It was, why are we taking an NIT coach to lead what we want a championship program? And then there were some other coaches pretty much unanimously in the league that called Mike Anderson the best hire of college basketball of all of last season. So I think that this is even a problem is a good sign for Mike Anderson and the Johnnies. I also think this is pretty solidified that LJ Figueroa is, or at least they're expecting LJ to go to the draft. If he doesn't and comes back, then great. You have LJ Figueroa on the team and you figure out the rest. Something's got to give, and whoever's unhappy, might voice it, but hopefully they won't let it affect the rest of the team.
Yeah, and you speak about someone that could potentially be staying in the draft and or expecting to go. And something that we did speak about earlier was with Georgetown. And Jaden and we spoke about this off camera. And Mac McClung, someone who was injured, someone who, he showed sparks of really good play. And now there's a possibility that, or actually not even a possibility, the chances are very high that he might stay in the NBA draft if there is one, and everything right now is just going to be an asterisk if there is one. Now, I'm going to ask you this, Jake, and when you have Omer Yurtseven being at the forefront of leaving, number one. Last year you had a Kenjo go. You had a few other guys that transferred out. There was rape allegations. There was battery charges. There was a whole bunch of stuff, that was revolving around the Hoyas program. And now you have two starters who are most likely not going to be back. Do you consider this a rebuild year for Georgetown?
I mean, it's really tough. If you think about it, they brought in a class of recruits that was a lot lesser, I want to say, than their Big East counterparts. I like, obviously, we just talked about UConn's recruiting class. Pretty good. Actually, I don't even really think we dived into their recruiting class a lot. But they still have, besides Sinogo, some four-star prospects, right? They have, a couple of different guys that are going to make an impact this year. You have Tyrese Martin, who's the grad transfer from URI. You have Andre Jackson, four-star recruit. Devontae Brown-Ferguson, four-star recruit. You look at Providence; they did a lot of damage in the recruiting, transfer wire and
yes,
like Jair Davis.
Yes.
Alan Breed. The last name was evading me for a bit, but I still think relatively speaking, I don't think the recruits that Georgetown brought in are necessarily at that caliber. And I think in a very shallow Georgetown team that we saw last year, as you just mentioned, Akinjo gone, a couple other guys gone, seeking greener pastures after the allegations and whatnot. They leaned on Mac McClung quite a bit this year. It caught up to him with all the injuries and, the eye problems were a little bit, kind of a far stretch, but they also leaned a lot on Jamorko Pickett, Yurtseven, guys like that. I don't know that you can necessarily say that it's a rebuilding year, but I definitely can tell you, I think Georgetown, I would be very surprised if they were able to not be playing on Wednesday night this year.
Wow, that's bold. That's bold. If they were not playing on Wednesday night. See now the thing that I want to go into is that because you have a lot of these players that are that either are they're leaving, they're transferring, they're staying in the draft, which really, I mean, again, you look at some of the numbers, Yurtseven returned in that 23-0 run by St. John's on that Wednesday night, March 11th, when, we know all about how that ended out. But Yurtseven returned from injury, 21 minutes of play, 8.6 boards, and shooting 4 from 6 from the charity stripe. But Jaden, you look at this and you say to yourself, how much longer does Patrick Ewing have before they move on from him? Because they haven't made it to a tournament yet.
Patrick Ewing's not going anywhere anytime soon. I do think he has a longer leash right now than John Thompson III had. A lot of it has to do with Big John backing his former star player. Remember, he still pulls the strings in that athletic program. He's got more of an influence than maybe Luke Hornacek has at St. John's than Calhoun had at UConn. They're running everything by Big John. He blessed Patrick's hire, and he's not going to turn on him anytime soon. That said, Georgetown does have a tall order ahead of it this season in the Big East. I agree with Jake. I do think they're probably going to be in that opening round again Wednesday night. There's just too many holes for that roster. James Akinjo is gone. Josh LeBlanc's gone. McClung is likely going pro. I'm not sure how much longer Javon Blair has. Jaden Mosley just graduated. It's not necessarily a full-on rebuild, but I think Georgetown and DePaul are pretty much a consensus, 10 and 11 preseason right now.
Wow. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, and you know what? Now, I was actually going to say, wait a minute, 9 and 10. Nope. We got UConn in the Big East now. So we have to make sure 10 and 11 is now the new ranking from top to bottom. Fellas, one last thing before we go this evening. I want to know your thoughts on this, and I wanted to wait a little while before I ask this question. And Jake, you work for a plethora of schools, Providence, Bryant, you cover those schools as well. But Jaden as well, and I've seen you retweet this. I've seen, I think we've spoken about this as well. But I want your true, honest opinions with this. Now, following the March 12th cancellation of everything, or March 11th and 12th cancellation of everything, within a few days, within actually, I think it was a week or 2 weeks, schools would come out with one shining moment videos. And in my opinion, I thought that maybe they should have waited until after the season would have been over. Usually the time that, I almost felt like it was a little rushed. You guys agree or disagree?
Am I going first, Jaden, or do you have a strong opinion? Because I'll
go for it, Jake.
A couple of days after the tournament, I think, is a little too much. But for example, when you have schools like Boston University, who I think you might have seen me retweet, Joey, that's a school that they have been chomping at the bit for a title for the entire history of the program, pretty much. Joe Jones, 9th-year head coach over there, brother of James Jones over at Yale University as well. It is, I get it in that scenario. Anyone else who's, routinely in the tournament and, routinely competing and expected to at least be competing for a top 25 seed, for example, I think that's a little too early, but there was so much uncertainty behind everything that was going on. I think a lot of schools were saying, let's just release it now. Let's get the content out. Let's keep the fans engaged before we embark on who knows long of a hiatus, which we're currently in. So I understand the inclination to do it. I think it's a little too soon.
Jaden, your thoughts?
I think it depends on who the school is. There were two situations that I covered a little closer than some other people, Hofstra being one of them. Hofstra winning the CAA came out with its one shining moment video not too long after cutting down the nets in DC, and I appreciated the opportunity that they actually got to win their tournament before everything was wiped out. If you're a Hofstra or if you're a Rutgers, and Rutgers had a one shining moment video as well, the sooner you get that out, the better. And if you're a mid-major, get it out right away, because nobody's going to pay attention to you from a casual fan standpoint 2 weeks after everything closes down. But for the more established powers, the Michigan States of the world, the Kansases of the world, Carolina didn't make the tournament. We won't talk about that. the Virginias of the world, the more established powerhouses, you can take your time on this stuff. I think it depends on who you are, how you got there, how long it's been. It was 19 years for Hofstra since last winning a conference championship. I think all of that comes into play. And the more significant the moment is, the sooner you want to share the joy with everybody. And I can't blame anybody for that. I really can't, especially now that we've gone almost 2 months with live sports off the grid. The sooner you're able to share that joy and fill that void and make people happy, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And, and the whole thing too is, fellas, and especially then, it was the unknown that we all, we were all trying to figure out, what's the deal? Is this going to be years? Is this going to be months? We don't know. And, as you said, Jaden, it's 2 months and counting. So, I think I have to, because you know what? And what really aggravated me, not going to lie, and this is no dig on the MAC, but Siena did a fantastic job this year. And I think they were crowned. They were crowned MAC champions.
They were retroactively awarded
the
MAC championship by virtue of being the regular season champion. Rich Enzer, when he held the press conference to cancel the remainder of the MAC tournament, said Siena would have been the auto bid had the NCAA still gone on by virtue of being the regular season winner. And while we're at it, Siena actually did a very good job on its own one shining moment video. I felt for those kids. They were so good. And I do think they're going to be really good again this coming season too. But there were a lot of fans outside Siena taking umbrage to that. All you got to do is look at some of the Iona fans that come into my timeline and fan the flames of the Iona-Siena rivalry, which has been going on for about a good 20 years. They're the two flagship programs in the MAC, and with good reason.
Well, that That's you give fair points, Jaden. So you know what? I can't even argue back, because that's really you shut me up there. That's for sure. So I take back exactly what I said, and I know the two guys over there that are listening, they've done a good job at shutting me up with certain arguments. So Jaden, you are now added to the list of shutting me up. So thank you for doing that and contributing to the madness. Jake Zimmer, Jaden Daly, fellas, I cannot thank you enough. And when we do have our college basketball special, which will be, when we get back, to live sports, I want you to
Joe.
October. Well, I hope, fingers crossed, fellas, because it's going to be I think this year is going to be special, just because we haven't seen live sports in 2 months, and every time it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. Fellas, cannot thank you enough. Again, Jaden Daly and Daily Dose of Hoops. Follow him on Twitter at Daily Dose of Hoops. Jake Zimmer, also follow him at on Twitter. Jake, your Twitter handle is Jake Zimmer 12. Perfect. There we go. Good. Pretty good, fellas. All right. Thank you both again for coming on to the Primetime Rundown. Really appreciate it. And you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and do not forget, we'll see you for both of your respective interviews in the next next few weeks.
My pleasure, Joe. Stay safe, brother.
Thanks, guys. Thank you
very much, guys.
Jake and Jaden. Appreciate it, fellas. All right. So with that being said, everybody, that is going to do it here for us. It is it's 8:06 already. Really, really good stuff.
Pay me overtime.
Yeah, it is. It is overtime. It's absolutely crazy. So Tyler, Nick, my goodness, I don't even know what to say. What a crazy stuff, filled with guests and good stuff. And that's really it. Any final words that we have to? Oh, how dare I forget Tyler's new show. Tyler, give us a little bit of background on on your new show. And I think you should stop starting to strip. What is this? The show's not over yet. Oh my goodness.
Cinemax this week.
Well, Joe, to be fair, I did already plug the show at like the 4 or 5 minute mark of the show.
That's nice, but I think we might have some guests that have not been listening back in the 5 minute mark. So I think you might want to
make your life easy. I mean, look, we've had on this show, we've had about, correct me if I'm wrong, we're up to about 10 guests now in total since last July.
I think so.
Yeah, all 10 of them have been better than you. So you have 10 replacements.
That's right. That's pretty good. And on top of it, we also have now, and I think we have 11 and 12 who are here right now, or were just here rather. So, or 9, 10, and 11. No, 10, 11, and 12. Okay.
No, today was 9, 10, and 11.
All right. Well, whatever the case may be, again, that's why we have Nick here for math and, basic math, that is. And so, Tyler, plug your show one more time for this coming Tuesday.
I'm bringing my plug tool.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man.
So we have the Essential Wrestling. We have the Essential Wrestling podcast that's on Tuesday nights from 6 to 7. This week coming up, we're going to be breaking down the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. We'll be breaking down tonight's SmackDown, which is currently airing. We'll be looking forward, see you later, to Wednesday night AEW and NXT. And basically just bantering back and forth about wrestling. Anybody who wants to chime in, reach out to us on Twitter. Check us out on ProWrestlingPick'em.com.
Well, also do not forget, check us out also on the Eastern Observer, presented to you by ProWrestlingPick'em.com. Really, really good stuff there. As you got the plug a little mixed, but not that bad. You'll eventually get there. 6 to 7 p.m. Right here on the Eastern Observer. It is the Essential Wrestling Podcast. Tyler Adelle and Al Carl. They had a fantastic debut show this past Tuesday. I saw it. Really, really good stuff. So. Tune in. It's going to be a ton of fun. But do not forget, ladies and gentlemen, a couple more plugs. This coming Monday, episode number 11 of the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, will feature former Jacksonville Jaguar wide receiver Cecil Shorts III, and he will be followed on the opposite half of the week on Thursday by Baltimore Orioles pitcher Kevin McGee, former St. John's pitcher. They will both be starting at 6 p.m., both Monday, May 11th at 6 p.m. and May 14th, Thursday at 6 p.m. For more information, please log on to theeasternobserver.com for both Tyler's show and my show. For Nick Partain and Tyler Adelle, and for all of us at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We'll see you next time.